how will the implementation of automated manufacturing processes kind of help to maybe bring more efficiency to John Deere's production processes?
Yeah, a few things in this space that really stick out to me. I think one of them is really the increase in speed or reduced cycle time in certain processes as we apply automation. Just to give an example there, automated storage and retrieval systems for components, the ability to put away, manage inventory, and pick much quicker than a human can help shrink that kind of value stream or that supply chain to be able to deliver components faster. So I think that's one way. Certainly, automation is impacting us. Improved accuracy of the processes. That again, typically, maybe if a human is doing that, there's more challenges with errors. So error proofing that. Again, that could be making sure a part gets to the right location, right? Versus a human element in part of that. Drive efficiency. We talked about this before, but the ability for automation to work when others are not, right? And making sure that things are continually being executed on our floor and in our processes. Another one. And then lastly, which I think is probably the most critical aspect of this, which is better utilization of our resources or our people. So the ability to bring automation in maybe to those dull, dirty, or dangerous jobs, or highly repeatable jobs, and then move resources into more highly value add closer to the customer, I think is a huge opportunity, not just for us, but I think across industries, right? Putting people where they can add the most value to the products.
And so when implementing automation within your manufacturing process, what maybe were some of the challenges or pain points that you guys maybe encountered, and how did you work to overcome those?
Yeah, I think it starts with probably culture and people being the biggest challenge or pain point. I think anytime you're looking at changing a process, bringing a new process in, bringing a new technology in, there's a hesitation, right? Of what's this going to do for me? How's it going to impact my role? How's it going to impact the process? And so I think staying ahead of that as much as we can and educating those that are going to be working around the technology, educating them how it functions, what it does, I think is absolutely critical. The second one I would say is processes. The old adage of don't automate a bad process certainly applies. So I think our focus has been on how do we adapt our processes to fit well with the technology. And technology is rigid, automation is rigid, so we need to adapt to it to continue that scaling path. And then lastly, I'd say infrastructure is the third item. And this is the physical environment, right, that we're working in. And whether it be a cobot at a work center and allowing enough space for that cobot to operate efficiently, or if it's an autonomous mobile robot that's moving, traversing a large facility, right, hundreds of thousands or millions of square feet. We got to make sure that aisle widths are correct. We got to make sure that there's enough static objects for feature-based navigation to work, those type of items. So I think it's culture, people, it's process, and it's infrastructure are all pain points we found on the journey that we're adapting to continue moving down the path.
And so what were maybe some of the first steps that you guys took as you began your automation journey?
Yeah, so I think first off, I mentioned this earlier, but certainly automation is not new to John Deere. We've had AGVs for decades. Robotics we've had in our facilities for a long time. But I think over the last 5 years, there's been a bit of a transition as we've started to look at other processes, such as the internal logistics piece. And so that started to really, I think, open up a lot of opportunities for us, such as with autonomous mobile robots, automated storage and retrieval systems, and beyond. But so when you just step back to that last piece of the transformation, it really all starts with a business need, right? And as I mentioned, we identified that as an opportunity or a business need for us. And then we spend time prospecting the market for viable solutions. And that's as the market evolves, we're looking to see what's changing with the technology. And then we're partnering with our factories. with our colleagues to ensure that we can pilot that technology in our environments, understand how it's going to act, react,
Mm.
um, and then certainly look at how we scale that through making it part of our global tech stack. And so those are kind of the core steps we've gone through. Um, but I'd say from us as John Deere, we're very much still, I'd say, earlier on in the journey, but we're continuing to look for opportunities to accelerate and break down some of those pain points as we discussed before, to scale right more at an accelerated rate.
Mhm. Okay. So I guess maybe just to kind of cap off our conversation then, what, from you guys as one utilize, a customer of automation technologies, where do you, from your perspective, maybe where do you see it headed in the next few years, or what, technology needs from your perspective are still needed, or I guess, where do you do you see things going or needed yet in the automation space?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, right, we're going to end up with smarter and more connected factories. I think that's where we see it headed. That's the journey we're on, and as many others are on. And I think that's certainly critical to success. But I think as you break it down more in terms of that outcome, um, I see things moving more to getting to efficiency gains that are going to come through potentially AI supported decision making, that really started though at its core foundation from the automation itself, right? Again, generating that data, to be able to leverage AI to more optimize maybe larger processes, right? And so I think that's something that we're going to see, as well as more AI integrated into the solutions themselves, right?
Mhm.
We're starting to see bits and pieces of that.
Mhm.
Um, I also think one of the things we're probably going to see as we move forward is some of these form factors of automation take on more complex tasks. I think if you look today, most of them are relatively simple in what they can accomplish and what they can do. But again, as we add that intelligence portion into them, and we're doing that through a large set of data, I think we're going to be able to see those use cases expand, get more complex. And that goes not just for, I think, the physical work being done, maybe in the manufacturing space, whether that be assembly or internal logistics, but I think it expands beyond that into maybe more administrative type work that's supporting the operations. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to lead our team members to work really on more higher value add tasks, regardless of where they're located or what part of the manufacturing process they're in.
Mhm. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today and provide some insight on how John Deere is implementing automation within its operations.